Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a new episode of the X Button, and happy April. I am one of your hosts, Alejandro, and with me is I don't know what to call you today.
Paul. Hey, everybody. How's it going?
Yeah, no pun today. I don't know if you got punked for April Fool's, so I didn't want to pull that.
Honestly, I didn't. It was a pretty tame April Fool's, and the only ones that I thought for sure were going to be fake ended up being real pieces of news. So I was like, well, this is just a great day all around, isn't it? Yeah, so I got away with it. Did you get punked at all?
Not at all, actually. I was actually surprised. And everything that I saw, I was always like, is this April Fool's? Is this April Fool's? Like, nothing literally got me like as a surprise.
Yeah.
And I was always double checking. I always knew that I had that at the back of my head. It's very easy to like forget that could happen. So I'm glad I wasn't punked. So
Same.
How's life, Paul?
It's been good. Last weekend was the Final Four, which I think I might have mentioned that I was preparing for it last episode, which is the national championships for college basketball out here in America.
You did not mention it, but you mentioned it on our chat because our friend PJ asked you. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
You'd have a really bad time of like remembering if we talk about something in the show or if it's our
terrible.
chat. Yeah.
If it happened already, 5 minutes might pass and I've already forgotten what I said or when it was, whatever it is. Anyway, yeah, so that all happened, and it was ludicrous because for one thing, as a funny side note, all four of the teams' main color was blue. So there was just a sea of blue
everywhere in the streets,
uniforms, polos, whatever it was all blue of different shades. And that just finished yesterday, actually. There was a tournament between the four going into two, and then finally they just finished that up. So all good there. But it was a little hectic, and now we're finally getting back to festivals before the doldrums of summer.
Oh yeah, can you believe summer is literally a month away?
I can't.
And we're nearing the anniversary of when we returned. We're near 50 episodes, Paul. Yeah, it's sick. Can you believe that?
I'm a little shocked, honestly, because my thumbnail listing is a little different because I started doing the thumbnails later after we came back to it. So I was like, oh yeah, we're at like 30 or something. I'm sure.
Yeah, we did 33 episodes in 2021, and we started this year with 34. So.
My gosh. And then I started naming them as season 2 so that the numbers wouldn't get too high. So now I'm like, I have no idea what we're at.
Yeah, I just put the seasons to make it easier to differentiate and find them in the Spotify app and in other audio services because it actually separates them. So it's actually pretty nice. Which, speaking of, so this is the X Button podcast, like we're mentioning, our gaming podcast that posts every Wednesday from 10 a.m. onwards, God willing, available on the YouTube channel Escape Media, as well as most audio services around the world, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and the like. You'll find many there. You can find links in the RSS feed at anchor.fm/escape-media. If you enjoy our show, give us a like and subscribe. So, enough preamble, Paul. Like, before the summer doldrums hit and you have to deal with more Mardi Gras 2.0 craziness, what you been playing?
Continuation from last week, I played a little bit of Destiny 2, a lot of GTA Online.
You're back in.
As of yesterday, actually. So I'll go ahead and talk a little bit on that one before I say my last statement. Is that I went so hard in it that I figured out the exact perfect, efficient way to make the most money, and I have bought so many vehicles and things that I didn't think like would take me several weeks worth to get, because now the latest heist that you can do solo is like guaranteed within like an hour of work you get about $1.5 million in the game. And so you do that once or twice and you can buy just about any one thing in the game. Even at like the higher point, I think the most is like 4 million and change. So I bought some ridiculous vehicles. I have a giant submarine. I've got
what?
Which is actually, so that's required to do the final heist, which is 2.2 million. Within that, you can store a small helicopter and a submersible car and a mini submarine within the submarine. I've gotten 2 of those 3 items so far. I got the tuners, which is all like Fast and Furious style cars with like the neon lights and fancy body types, which is one of the things that people have been looking for a really long time. So I love that. And a lot of just ludicrous vehicles. There's like a Mach 5 car that's on my list that I really want, because you can do like little yoink yoinks, jump up in the air and hit the rocket button and you just fly, and it's so fun. But that's getting to the point of like, what are you even doing besides buying dumb things with the money you get? So I'm actually about to start slowing down on that, because I know I'm going to get burnt out on it very quickly soon. Because at this point it's like I feel like I've beaten the game already. So I'm just gonna save it until you and Zach want to jump in. We'll be able to do heists without me getting burnt out.
Yeah, it's gonna be a while before I reinstall GTA 5 because it's like 86 gigs, and I want to clear the deck of the things that I have installed there. So, like for example, Horizon that I'm still playing. I want to. I'm now at the point where I know that when I beat that game, it's gonna pop the platinum trophy. I don't know how I managed to do that. Considering how immense the map looked, that I was like, oh man, I don't know if I can do this because I have all these other games to play, and this game's even more massive than I was expecting. And now I finally checked the trophies yesterday. I was like, huh? Then I guess I'll be able to finish it and be able to delete it afterwards, because I won't have to play it after I finish and pop the trophy like I did Zero Dawn. That's an 88 gig game. GTA, it's another 80 something game, so maybe that's how I will like switch it up. But I have other priorities also with all the games that we played.
Understandable, which is why I am slowing down with that, and at the perfect time, because Lego Star Wars The Skywalker Saga came out yesterday.
Oh yes.
And I had
technically today by like midnight yesterday.
I had some mixed thoughts on it at first, because I started out with the Phantom Menace level, which apparently is like the worst of the bunch.
That and 8 apparently.
Oh, okay, I can see that. But it's so my thoughts in order are it's funny because I, getting ready for it, rewatched The Phantom Menace before this, which is both a really nice experience because it was honestly really fun to get back into that nostalgia, and 2, I did not realize how dated the CG looks now.
Yeah.
Like people joke about it, but I was always like, no, it still looks pretty good. And now I'm like, oh no, it actually is looking like really rubbery on like Jar Jar's face and stuff. And I was like, yikes.
And what's funny is that a lot of that movie is practical. That's what's so funny.
I know that blows my mind, where it's like all models and stuff, which that was one thing that I kind of knew about, but it's because everyone just kind of echo chambers all of that, and then later on, like Attack of the Clones is probably easily the worst.
Yeah, that's the full CG one. Yeah.
But what was I gonna say? For whatever reason, my TV, like I can tell when the frame rate like jumps in the fight scenes. Like at first it's like normal, like the way that I remember the movie going, but then there's points during the fights that I'm like, whoa, it all of a sudden got like a little bit smoother.
I know what happened. You have a weird version of like motion clearness that some TVs have that sometimes give the movies like a soap opera, like quicker frame rate, like in some points. So you have to deactivate that for it to go back to like normal film frame rate. Many people don't know that, and they leave it like that.
What that's called, because like of all things, also the Phantom Menace is like really dark for me. I don't know why, but that's a completely different problem. Like I put that in when I first got the TV, and I was like, why is it so dark? What is going on? And now I'm like, now that I've seen it with other things, I was like, I know it can be bright. Just for whatever reason, Disney Plus's version of the Phantom Menace feels like it has the brightness turned way down.
No, it's HDR, because you have to calibrate your HDR.
No, but the HDR is fine with everything else that I play. It's like I've shown you. Well, obviously it wouldn't show on screenshots, but like Horizon, Spider-Man will like really bring out the vibrant colors. And for whatever reason, that one movie is like, it's like there's a blue filter put over it all.
Would you hate to know that calibrating HDR in movies and games is completely different?
Okay,
so you might need to like calibrate whenever you're watching a movie.
Hate calibration, because on this TV is so frustrating to deal with. You have to go through so many menus just to get to it, and even then it's like separated into other areas. It's just
Yeah,
Like,
my
I
LG
would
is so
sooner do
easy.
something else.
I love my LG because it makes it so easy to calibrate. So
Yeah, that's the only downside to that. Anyway, back to the actual game. Um, so playing through Phantom Menace was interesting. I don't really like how they're doing the structure.
yeah, that's a big problem in the game.
I understand why they're doing it, because the whole point is to get like the collectathon to really let you explore and stuff. But it's like literally, okay, you're going to run from area A to area B, kill like 10 enemies ish, and then you hit a button to play another cutscene, and then you just kind of keep going and you go and you
and
go,
sometimes not even enemies. There's times where you just go to one spot and then you go to another one.
And you're hearing like dialogue of voiceovers as you're running. I was like, what is this, Borderlands?
Yeah.
So that was I wasn't super thrilled with that, but then I started playing the Force Awakens one, because I was like, you know what, I want to try seeing what they did to the sequels. And I didn't get super far, but just at the start of it was kind of nice, and it feels like they're holding more to the actual script of the movie, with only the silliness being the pantomime stuff in the background, where like I felt the Phantom Menace one, they were kind of just making their own dialogue here and there a little bit more, but maybe that was just me coming up with stuff, because I also recognize Qui-Gon's voice as the guy that does the voiceover from the Clone Wars.
Yeah.
And then of course I think Obi-Wan is the same voice
actor. Is the same actor.
Obi-Wan always is.
Yeah, James Arnold Taylor, and Matt Lanter's Anakin whenever you reach episode 2.
Oh shoot, okay.
Yeah.
And then Jar Jar sounds really weird, especially having just watched the movie. So that was really funny. But I want to get into it, and I know that I'm at a stage in my life where I don't think I'm going to be able to really like enjoy the nitty-gritty of it, because I'm going to want to jump into the next thing already, you know.
Well, good thing there's nothing coming out, so
I know
you'll have the time.
I don't know if I'm going to like really burn through this and jump into Horizon, or if I'm just going to really try to sink my teeth into this and see what happens. I saw there's a really funny glitch where if you play as the Mandalorian, you keep switching your characters that are following you as the Mandalorian. It just keeps like duplicating the character.
I had that glitch, but with Jar Jar.
Oh my gosh, it looked so funny. I was like, I just want to do that, walk around and have them all shoot at people. It would just be amazing. Anyway, yeah, so that's pretty much everything that I've been doing, and I want to sink more into Lego Star Wars and get to my backlog, which keeps growing with every passing day. Yes,
but the good thing is that the backlog will remain static at least until August, because like I mentioned, there's like nothing coming out. So yeah,
I keep creating things to put on my backlog, though, where I'm like, that looks like a cool game, I should put that on my backlog, and then just keeps going.
It happens, especially with the perpetual sales. I mean, there's a really good one happening right now all the way until end of April. But yeah, I've also been playing Lego Star Wars: The Skywalker Saga. I actually played the majority of it with my brother. We played it split screen. That was fun and weird, because I am not a big fan of how they've done the perspective for split screen, in that instead of doing a horizontal split, it's like a vertical one. And the problem when you do vertical is that it limits your field of view so much that it feels like that Traveler's Tales, the developer, their intention now is for you to like spend time in the free world, like in free roam. They used to be free play in other Lego games. Free play is basically you get to explore so many worlds. This game is so damn big. When you see the map, how many planets you can go, and because it's of all the movies, they really want you to
20-something planets and stuff.
Yeah, it reminds me of old school games like Banjo-Kazooie, like those kind of platforms, collectathons that you can really be exploring worlds and unlocking stuff. And I appreciate that because it feels more in depth than the more just go through levels of previous Lego games. At the same time, it makes the game have so much downtime that if you're not engaging with the exploration and kind of satiating the curiosity of exploring and finding some kyber crystals to get some upgrades, you're just going from point A to point B. Especially in the Phantom Menace, there's so many times where you're just going to a place, press the button, see a bridge version of a cutscene of a movie scene, and then you go to another spot, press another button to see another version of a cutscene. So there's a little too much of that happening. I remember talking with my brother, it's like, where's the action? It's like kind of weird that there's not much, you're not doing much action. The thing is that the action is sequestered into the levels, and the Phantom Menace levels are weird in water levels. Like the very first level of Phantom Menace is the fish escape. Like when Obi-Wan, Qui-Gon, and Jar Jar are escaping from the fish, and you're like play it in like a shooter. If you want to play the first mission, that's what they consider the first mission. The the second mission for Phantom Menace is the pod racing.
What? So they just skip over the ship entirely at the start of the movie?
No, that's the thing. Like you do the beginning. That's the thing. Like you're going through the chips and all that, but that's not considered a level. That's not like a scripted level. Like they were like, there's 5 missions per episode, so it's like a total of 45 levels, 5 for each movie. It's just interesting what they decided what consisted of a level. The third mission of Phantom Menace is actually the Darth Maul fight. And that's when everything like clicked, because I was like, oh, I like how many enemies are here. This boss fight with Darth Maul is pretty cool, because when I remember to old Lego games, the boss fights are so like simple with a mix of puzzles, and there's a few elements of that, but because this game has had much more kinetic improved combat where you can time the square a la Devil May Cry and jumping and all, when they do like a mix of Square X that we were playing on PlayStation.
I have appreciated those combos.
Yes, so it's like, because before it was just the same melee buttons doing with all the characters with previous Legos, so that thing is cool. And then getting to play the Jar Jar battle that becomes like a tower defense game.
Oh my god,
it's actually cool. And then the last mission of the last level of Phantom Menace is Anakin, and you're in the ship, and it feels like Rogue Squadron. I was like, oh my god, they nailed it. It feels tight to fly around and be shooting. So I got to finish that, and then when I stopped playing with my brother and got to see like the full screen, I was like, I get it now. Now I get to feel like getting to witness the different biomes, to getting to see the different planets, seeing Coruscant so fully realized. Like, man, we never get like full Star Wars game to go through Coruscant, and just thinking about other planets from the rest of the movies. I'm like, okay, I see, because I was like, I put it in our chat, it's like, I'm feeling positive and also mixed, because I was also having a little bit of those quibbles, but getting to play a little bit more after I stopped playing with my brother and exploring more and understanding the game structure a little bit more, this made me like it more. However, I've been reading reviews where other episodes are much better. They say the low points are episode 1 and episode 8. Especially there's ironic, of course The Last Jedi would be a problem. Apparently there's a lot of walking around happening in The Last Jedi, especially because that's a movie where not much happens, so it makes perfect sense. So
that makes more sense. So like whenever there's a certain mission that they consider a level, it's like pops off.
Yes.
But in between those, they're kind of
you're
like
just exploring
to those points. That makes more sense, because I was like, man, this really sucks. What is going on? Because I know like they put some really good stuff in here. Why can't I see it? And I remember hearing somebody said that it was actually the IGN video. I watched the review on that, and he was talking about how he was playing with his son, and the Obi-Wan versus Anakin fight is
his son, it's very lopsided.
It's like one of you is 3PO and the other is Obi-Wan fighting Anakin. And I was like, oh, that's weird. Yeah,
because if you remember in the original Lego Star Wars, you would play it either as Anakin or Obi-Wan. Exactly. So you're actually playing the level, and just at the end, it becomes like a fighting game where whoever wins.
And that was probably one of the coolest things, where it was like, all right, you're working together, and then you're fighting each other, working together, fighting each other, and then right at the end, you're just like doing crazy nonsense. And I remember it was always the double jump, square, and then you would slam down, and whoever was on the ground was just done. And that was super fun, but it was a bit of a shame that it seems like they're going away from that, at least. But overall, I see like a lot of cinematography going on with some of those fights, and I was like, all right, let's see what
I will say. Some of the quality in the visuals, there's some slight frame rate hitches in some of the cutscenes, but when you're in the game, the shininess, some tiny details you see, because my brother noticed, like, look, there's like sand, like tiny little bit of sand, like all over the Lego's feet. I was like, huh. I was like,
this is why this, like that part. That was really cool.
Yeah, so this is why this game took 5 years. Too much detail. And you see how many side quests there are?
Not yet.
Oh my! There's a list, because
a very small amount of Phantom Menace, and then I played the opening mission for Force Awakens before we started recording, just to have some variety.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, I'm so not even close to touching like the true meat of this game. But every piece of gameplay of it that I see is like, this looks so awesome. From there was the mission where you can talk to Yaddle and Coruscant and you go fight a crate dragon. I was like, you can what?
Because there's side missions. That's the thing. This game has a side mission structure that's there once you complete all the main 45 missions, and that's I was just thinking about, man, would have this been the greatest game of all time if I was a little kid and getting this?
And without irony, I think absolutely you're right. Like, if I was a kid and I played this game, I would have gone freaking nuts.
And now think about it this way. Imagine if this is baby's first open world. Just think about that. This, like, the little kids seeing this is like introducing them into the open world concept.
Yeah.
In such a cute, funny, because the Lego charm is all over this game. I had laughed out loud. So like, wait until you see how they do the Darth Maul Qui-Gon moment near the end of Phantom Menace. Just wait until you, because now it's more comedic. It's just so funny because with my brother, we're like, wait, how are they doing this? Oh, okay, that was good. So there's a couple gotcha comedic moments that's working.
Yeah.
And apparently this game is so good at poking fun at the sequel trilogy, and I want that because of my disdain towards that trilogy after Rise of Skywalker. Especially if me as someone that I used to be in the Pro Last Jedi camp until like the Rise of Skywalker was like, this is this because this movie ruined it over there. So yeah, I had a retroactive like walk back of that one. So I want to see how it makes fun of, because I think I just saw the picture of Skill Up, right? The sequel shade?
Yes, I think so. Yeah. I know what you're talking about, and I'm trying to remember what it looks like, but tell me.
Yeah, it was like the Luke Skywalker talking with one of the rebels, and they're like, oh man, that was good enough. I hope they never do a sequel. Yep. So yeah, I'm enjoying. I think it's hitting the spot of something that feels different from all the games that we've gotten, in something that's like, it's a good dessert for all the big course meals that we've been getting. It's the palate
cleanser.
Exactly. It's like a palate cleanser. It's so simple. I hope to God that they get enough feedback that they patch in a horizontal co-op mode, because I feel Lego games there's very few games you get to play split screen co-op. Obviously we got Tiny Tina's Wonderlands. I haven't played much in a bit, but that's another one that at the very least you can play with the couch. We barely get couch games anymore, and Lego games are a staple, so I hope they fix that, because it's just not as enjoyable as you playing solo. And before, I would always love playing with people. That was always
I could have sworn that it was the same way, wasn't it? With the split screen?
No.
No, it used to be like on the same screen, but
and then if you split up,
I thought it was still vertical.
The thing is that when you split up, the screen was split up depending on the angle you're splitting up.
Oh,
so like if your character was going like this way, the screen would like, let me see.
It would split. It was in the direction
exactly. Okay. But it was never splitting in the same way. And horizontal is just the best way to do that, because you get more field of view. Yeah. So I hope they fix that, because as soon as I was playing, I saw a day one patch, or like the 1.03 patch drop like an hour after I started playing. I was like,
really?
Okay, I guess they're starting to patch it now. So it seems like this is gonna be a long haul thing for them, because it took them so long.
I would think so, because I mean they already showed that the Mandalorian DLC, it's free, but
not free. You have to pay it.
Wait,
you have
really?
to pay for
I don't know why I thought it was free. I must have misheard that, but yeah. So more DLC is going to be coming, and I'm sure they're just going to keep doing it. I mean, it's a hub. It's like built perfectly for DLC and additions
there's
to it.
300, 400 characters. It's like there's so much. For anyone that likes completing games, this game is a goldmine.
Yeah,
it's a literal gold mine.
I'm sure there's going to be like a whole Clone Wars or a Rebels DLC plot line or whatever, and it's only a matter of time for
that's what I was telling my brother, because Lego Star Wars 3 only covered season 1 and 2 of Clone Wars.
Exactly.
And they never got to 3, 4, and 5. This would have been good content.
Gosh, can you imagine Lego Star Wars Season 7 of Clone Wars?
Siege of Mandalore.
Watching like Ahsoka falling through like a whole mini game of her skydiving. You could do that stuff easily.
Man, how great is that last arc of Clone Wars, man? Just thinking about that.
Yes. It recently. Just the full motion capture that they did for that Maul versus Ahsoka fight. To everything about that, because I was just thinking about how they used the early seasons were Grievous and Dooku as the villains, and like they pretty quickly just kind of got them out of there. For Grievous, for obvious reasons, because they specifically said that Anakin and Grievous
they could never meet. Yeah,
so they just got him out of the story.
And it was always funny seeing all the ways that show was going to not have them meet, even though Obi-Wan and Grievous would always fight together.
Exactly. And then, of course, Dooku, they explored some really interesting things with him. And then after a while, they were just like, I think, what was it? Asajj Ventress became like the next step. And then the second they involved Maul, they were like, oh, this is our new boy.
No, remember, it was Savage Opress.
Well, yeah, but I mean, once they hit Maul, they were like, this is the final boss of all of this. We're building up. And I love everything that Maul was when he showed up. I have
to appreciate that they really went the lengths into trying to justify getting Maul back, because obviously getting sliced in half it's not going to, like, it's something that's hard. It's tricky to walk back from that, but they committed, because originally Sebastian Press was going to be like, okay, we want a new Maul because Maul got killed. But then somewhere in the writing, they were like, you know what? Let's go for it. And I'm glad they did, because he's at the heart of not just some of the best content from Clone Wars, but also Rebels.
Yes. And my gosh, the growth or lack thereof for Maul is really good with Rebels, and like how he becomes like a manipulator character and all that stuff. And still a little sad that they decided to include him in Solo, because that wasn't necessary. Besides that, just what a way to build up one of the best characters.
Yeah, it just makes it unnecessary, because you knew that the year before in Rebels he got killed by Obi-Wan again in the Twilight of the that's Twilight of the Apprentice. It's like the Twin Sons episode from season 3 that he gets killed in a very samurai way. That you think it's gonna have the big battle, and then Obi-Wan just like
Star Wars Rebels, just as a heads up. But I'm pretty sure you knew that Maul was not going to last very long in Star Wars. But just like the way that goes down. At first, I was like, oh, I was expecting something really bombastic and crazy, and then as the longer I went, I was like, oh no, that was really reserved and really good.
Because it's very Kurosawa, like samurai. You like samurai stuff. You would have appreciated much more. So.
The longer I went through it, the more I was like, gosh, what a way to show growth between Obi-Wan changing his poses before he finally like goads Maul into attacking. And I know we're totally getting off topic, but DLC for Lego Star Wars. That we're bringing it full circle.
Exactly. They have enough content outside the 9 main movies to keep expanding on this, and they worked. So they literally took them 5 years to make this game. Lego games didn't take this long, because obviously they had to completely rework camera angle, design. Like, it's much deeper than previous Lego games. So
ground up for sure.
I have to give them their flowers there. That is like, it took them a long time, and I can see the work. And there's still elements to it that would be like, you can see this was a little tortured in its development cycle, but in the end, it's like it's been a really greatly received game. And for Lego, that the Lego games have kind of been tapering off for a little bit. It's good that they found a new angle to tackle this, because imagine if they did do this treatment when they go back to Marvel, because they've done the Lego Avengers games, the Lego Marvel superhero games, or even some of the DC games. If they implement what they implemented here, maybe tweaking a little bit the pacing and all that, it would be really great.
They've got another dynasty in the making, because I mean, Lego, they already have the rights to each of the biggest media franchises in the world. You just do it all over again with that model. It's printing money. It's easy.
Exactly. And apparently this game is murdering on Steam right now. It has like a high amount of concurrence. My brother's playing it on PC also. I watched a little bit of it. It's like it looks just slightly sharper in spots than the PS5 version, and it goes back to me like, I'm glad I got it on console, because our console, the current generation of consoles, can give us pretty good at the price we got them for. So and then other things that I played, obviously you mentioned Destiny 2. I only want to briefly mention that I'm shocked how big our clan is getting in Destiny 2, and we're finally getting what are known as Destiny Sherpas. The people that actually know how to do the raid, that are willing to take people to a raid and teach you the most efficient way to do it. Like we got 2 people that basically know how to cheese bog in a way that I had not expected. I was like, oh,
Really?
this is great.
Oh yeah, you mentioned briefly that one of the guys was able to do stuff like that, and like taught you a new way to do the oracles with 4 people. And
that's much easier.
Like
that's much easier to teach.
That is like, I want to jump in, and I mean, like I mentioned, with my wife going out of town on Thursday,
this week is going to be prime time. Yes.
I am like, I think there's one thing that I kind of have to do. Unfortunately, I have to like move furniture for my wife's parents, but then I was like, all right, but besides that,
but you have freedom from Thursday to Sunday, so we can attempt it.
Exactly.
And I said I wouldn't, but then I saw a video of freaking Radon. I went back to Elden Ring for a little bit again. And Elden Ring is that game where I say, I said it last week. I was feeling that Dark Souls burn. I was like, I'm not enjoying this right now because I still feel I had my full serving of Dark Souls. But seeing that Radon fight in a streamer that I was watching, I was like, there's so much BS that I'm watching here. But man, I think I kind of want to eventually get there because my god, that battle with this monstrous commander that's like eating blood and it's on top of like this very short horse that then can do an area of effect attack where he goes into the sky and falls down on you with a comet. It's just insane. It's like the level of creativity that game like never ceases to impress me. With what I seen, it's like it's like I went back because I had not fought Godric, the second of the big Elden Lords, and he killed me in the first run, and then I just texted you, he's like, oh, so people weren't kidding around with Godric. And you're like, that's so funny you say that because I did it in my second try with the jellyfish and the spawn point. I was like, I don't see a spawn. I didn't say it, but I don't see a spawn point. Did I do something wrong? And I went to just explore a little bit, and I found this axe wielding lady that is like, hey, if you need help, I'll help you fight Godric. I was like, I guess I found it. Put the jellyfish on, got in, and beat her on my second turn. I was like, yes.
Yeah, and it's like the tools they give you to really circumvent the BS that the bosses will actually pull off on you makes it feel a lot more fair, where it's like, all right, so you know that they're going to do some really garbage stuff to you, so you have to stack everything in your favor as much as possible. So I always feel like it kind of evens out rather than some people where it's like, oh, you're not actually fighting them. I was like, no, they're going to do some crap that I don't agree with, so I'm going to do some crap
and
that
I think this is worth criticizing this game for, especially after coming from Dark Souls, that I was able to go through that game really being patient and studying enemy pattern and movement, especially from the bosses. It feels like this game's bosses break their own rules. Like, it feels like Miyazaki one, because we're giving you all these things that are going to help you. We're going to like unbalance the actual boss fights and do even extra BS that wasn't there in other Souls games. But because you can find tools to kind of circumvent that, I feel if you're just the traditional, I'm going to go there with my sword and shield and really just go in and attack at the right time, feels like it's gotten a little lost. Just early on, and I know it's getting worse later on, because later on you'll get more magic. I've seen that big laser thing that just melts people, and
there's only been a couple of times I felt like I really needed it. Some of it has been just to cut down on the time of like frustration for me, because I'm like, I know how much more I have to play this game. I'm just gonna wipe this dude out and keep playing the game. But
and I feel they've designed it that way. They've kind of designed that. So
I wanted to mention like what you were talking about, where I think it's not that they, okay, so some of them absolutely break their own rules. I think some of it is come from a completely different design philosophy, where they want to offer more opportunities and options for their boss characters, first of all. The problem is that the AI is clever enough, like the video that I mentioned with Margit, where he has rules, but the problem is his chains are very similar and they diverge. So a lot of people get too greedy and think that they like, okay, this is my opportunity, but he can go into more chains. So you have to like get a lot more creative with the where you're seeing his chain actually end, rather than where it will try to fool you into ending, where like that's why so many bosses are like, they'll go to swing and then they'll hold and they'll hold and
don't even get me started with that.
They want you to spam the dodge button, so as soon as you're on that last one they come down and hit you. And I realized that And I was like, that is some cheap nonsense, because the developers know that you're going to spam your dodge the second you get hit.
I tell you, it's hostile for sword and shield characters because that's the style that you play. That's how I play Dark Souls. That's how I beat Dark Souls in 46
I realize
hours.
So many more people are playing stuff like dexterity builds with like blood loss or their magic. I don't see as many people going through like straight strength, which is what I used to do. And now I'm like, gosh, if I had been doing that, not only would it be harder, but it would be way more repetitive.
Look, now knowing that I had the samurai with the Gatanga, whatever that thing's called,
Katana,
that I hated when I first started playing, because remember I was like, I'm not feeling it. Then I switched to the Vagabond, and then after finding the Gatanga in Dark Souls and upgrading that becoming the thing that helped me finish that game with the Bloodless, I was like, dang it, I still have my samurai character there. Should I go back to that? No, I'm just sticking with I'm sticking with my Vagabond.
You can easily get that sword and better versions of it as well, that I would say make it not worth going back to that specific character.
Yeah, and then I found this like ghost lady in a boat, and I kill her once, and then when you kill her, there's this guy who's like, hey, you got a spear, do you want to go feed it to some monster over here? And I go, and I went, that it transported me all over to kill it.
Oh, I know what you're talking about, yeah.
And I was like, ooh, there's like this weird sphinx dude like covering the stairs of this monster.
Oh, and, yeah.
But you spawned right behind. I was like, yeah, I'm out of here. So,
man, I just beat him before I kind of took a break from the game, and he is still really hard when I was like over a level 100. I had to use my spirit and like every trick in the book, because he uses a lot of garbage against you, because he can fly, he can shoot lasers and stuff. But what I wanted to mention is one little thing that you probably didn't realize. The guy that you offer those death roots to, he's got like the hood on and stuff. I had a crazy experience with him one time that will probably frustrate you if you see it, where if you give him a couple of them, he'll take it, he'll accept it, he gives you something for each one. And I turn around and I walk back and I hear footsteps, and I turn around and he attacks me.
Really? The guy that you're feeding the stuff?
And wipes me the crap out. And I respawn at the spot. And at first he's good, and if I try to walk out, he attacks me again. So I had to beat him down, and thank God I was like, did I break the game? What's happening? And it turns out, because you're offering him this stuff, you're giving him power, and it like overwhelms him for a second.
Oh no.
But when you get his health to a certain point, he yields, and he's like, I'm sorry, it won't happen again.
It's the same as this thief guy that I found like in the river that you didn't find.
Oh, really? So you had like a similar experience with that?
Yeah, you're fighting him, and then he yields. Like you get him after a certain health, and then he heals. And
yeah. Oh, so you're talking about Patches, right?
Yeah, Patches. Yeah.
So yeah, that's basically the same thing. And then when I reset, he was back there, and he's like, "Yeah, sorry about that."
Yeah, I have heard an amazing story about Patches that if you find him, you can have him join you as a spawn in the Radon fight.
I heard about this,
but he's the only one that I didn't see it, but I hope, because I found him, that I hope that happens to me whenever I reach that sucker, that he spawns and then he leaves. He like nopes out after seeing
that. He walks up and he's like, he just turns around, and then it's like Patches has departed. I was thinking,
one thing that I really hate is that of the time that I learned about this is recently learning that they had patched in Radon to make it easier, and now they patched that out and made it harder again. I was like, great. So whenever I get there, I'm going to find him in all his BS glory.
You're going to fight him at what I fought him at, which was a lot. That's one of the points where I was like, this really is not stacked in the favor of melee people, because the way he swings, his hitbox is so confusing to me.
Exactly. That's what I'm telling you. It's like this game is like, it seems like it's being very hostile for the normal traditional play of shield and sword, but I feel with them introducing respecking and all that, I feel they've given everyone, and I'll be like, okay, if this is not working, work on your magic, people. So
yeah, the only thing is that in order to get the ability to respec,
you have to kill one of them, right?
Like so many of the area to the left where you have to get into the academy, the Magic Academy, and you have to beat the boss there.
Yeah, I think I'm there now because I got I got taught about the Magic Academy as we're finding a church. That's where I got some of the magic that I can use with the thing. So,
yeah, where it looks like Bloodborne, and it's like one of my favorite areas because I'm like, gosh, it's like.
And apparently, there's an area that's like Arlo,
so cool.
That's like Arno Londo from Dark Souls 1. There's like a castle that's like that. I was like, oh my god,
that's like my current favorite place. That's the one where I was saying where it's like the yellow leaves are falling like in autumn, but it's like this white city like Minas Tirith. It's that's probably my favorite, with the Magic Academy being second right now.
And are you gonna go for Melania?
Eventually.
Because apparently you can beat the game without going to her. She's like,
really?
Yeah.
Oh shoot.
So
man, so I don't even know, because I rewatched, or not rewatched, I watched a video on stuff that like, oh, you might have missed an Elden Ring, and I was just checking that out, and I was like, I don't want to go back to that game right now. Like, I've reached the event horizon where I'm like
you did Dark Souls, because I learned that you never finished the original Dark Souls.
Basically, what ended up happening with that, I guess I blanked out because I know I got to the point where I fought like Nito and the Four Lords and stuff, and I was like, this sounds familiar. I remember the Crystal Dragon. Then at a certain point, I was just like, I have no idea what he's talking about.
Yeah, you were like, I told you about the bed of chaos, and I don't know if the word chaos is something that your mind just automatically blocks now.
I'm like a sleeper agent in the 80s where you just say the word chaos.
Chaos.
And I'm like,
triggered.
All right, let's go.
Yeah, but since I'm getting so close to beating Horizon now, it's like I'm shocked that just because I like going into guides and seeing the names of the levels without actually looking at the guides just to see how far I am. Anyone, it's like if you want a game to mainline, I'm like, Horizon's actually pretty decent and just like the mainline experience. And I showed you some pictures of the inundated or kind of like the buried Las Vegas. Yeah. That they were like, oh my god, it's pretty. It's like there's some stunning bits that you can get from just mainlining that game. So I can't.
That's what I'm gonna do for a little bit, but I realize that's what I have to do to get into any game now. Is I have to mainline at least like 2 or 3 missions
until you get into the feel again.
Like flowing back into the side.
And as you do that, they'll go to the custom difficulty where you can kind of like customize.
Oh, I already have some of. I didn't do as much because I know you're talking about doing like extra damage and stuff. I was like, I'm gonna see how far I can keep it on like where it's at. But I had already changed a couple of things that I'm blanking out on what I did.
Because one thing that I'm fearing, because obviously I have like I'm 100%. I'm not gonna 100%, but I'm platinuming that game, and I've done a lot of things in Horizon where I've done the arena challenges that gave me this armor that I basically is like the skin from the Thunderjaw, and it really, and it's like gold, it's like an exotic, because obviously this game has colored loot. So I'm on exotic level armor and exotic level bows and arrows that just playing it in normal, I'm making enough damage. I know that you get very annoyed sometimes at the time to kill that it can have, especially when you're not playing the game as intended as, okay, it's not just about shooting the arrows. I have to tear down these very specific parts to get that damage. So as I was doing the side content, I experimented with the custom difficulty where I put the health that I lose when I get hit into very hard, but I put the enemy damage that I did to them into story. So
it becomes like
high
risk, high reward.
Exactly, because the damage you're making the damage you're making is that you can bring down like a Thunderjaw with 4 arrows. But if you get hit once, you're done. Yeah. So I was like, it's interesting. You can like granulate. I love that kind of accessibility of granularly adjusting stuff for your liking. Yeah. And because the game doesn't have difficulty trophies, you can still platinum it. You're not forced into trying to play a more frustrating version of that. I tell you, I would never play that game on hard doing the arena challenges. Those arenas kick my butt. So
I might have to try that out and see like if I'm ever hitting a wall, like where you
put it on story, and put it on story.
Yeah, I might have to. But yep, that's
all we've been playing.
That's gonna be it for me pretty soon.
Exactly. So we got a bevy of news. Some are a little bit of the same topic in a way. So continuations. So Paul,
press X
for some news. All right, Paul. This thankfully broke this morning. So Number 1, after a 2-year wait following its initial unveiling at the 2020 Summer Games Fest, Epic Games announced today that it is finally out of beta and has become a full development tool available for all developers starting today. What am I talking about? I'm talking about the Unreal Engine 5. So what this means is that the entire development toolkit of the Unreal Engine is now fully accessible to all devs who were already speccing their games towards the engine with the initial Unreal Engine 5 tools, and they can now fully harness the next generation capabilities of this engine. The announcement came in with the reveal of 82 studios that are adopting the technology, with Microsoft in particular announcing their in-house studios In Exile, Rare, Under the Labs, The Initiative, Double Fine, Ninja Theory, The Coalition, and Obsidian Entertainment are all going to be using the tech. By the way, we already saw some preliminary results of the technology with the Hellblade 2 demo at last year's Game Awards. Go to look at that. That thing's stunning.
I still gotta play the first one. Gosh, that's another one on my backlog.
Yes.
Jeez. Anyway.
But you won't be able to play the sequel because it's on Series X and S. So, PlayStation was also included in the studios that would adopt the technology, but only the recently acquired Haven Studios was specifically named as using the tech. PlayStation Studios Sony Bend was previously the only studio to not use a proprietary engine in the Sony ecosystem, building Days Gone using Unreal Engine 4. Whether it will develop the new IP with the newer Unreal Engine technology or using a proprietary engine like Guerrilla's Decima remains to be seen. So, Paul, remember when we first saw the Unreal Engine tech demo of the lady that looked like Tomb Raider? And then she's like flying over the thing. So, can you really, now that technology is now finally here. Now, developers, it's like that was just a stunner. And then we got the Matrix Unreal Engine 5 thing.
Yeah, right. I'm realizing that the next step for a lot of games is not fidelity in the graphics itself. It's like really good scans of real footage. Where
phototelemetry.
The phototelemetry where it was I saw the one for obviously the Unreal Engine 5 reveal. There was that one where it was like a mod for GTA 5, but like they replaced it with photographs of real places, and it was like compositing every piece of like the road, the stores, the cars with like actual photos, and it looked freaking nuts. With like, I mean, a little bit of sketchiness just because, I mean, it's a program that needed to be dialed in, but I mean, just the stuff that you're able to do now, and realizing that that's kind of where you're supposed to be going, rather than, hey, we're going to make this really good looking CG piece, because that's always going to look a little off, especially for people. I love seeing this kind of stuff where you've got granular objects, little rocks and things falling and processing at real time in engine, and the movement of all of these pieces taking less processing speed, so then like the system can actually focus on other stuff. And I know, like, to a lot of people that are more casual fans of video games, they
don't understand this technicalities.
Make a lot of sense, but just the fact that you can do so much with less now is making it better and easier for people like indie developers to do this stuff. And that's what I think has me the most excited. Not just the AAA stuff and the quadruple A, as Microsoft always call it, but just the fact that all of this stuff can be utilized by anybody in their own house.
This is technology that can power VR games. This is technology that can power mobile games. This is technology that just can... Unreal Engine is how they did Mandalorian, by the way. They used that. Right. Yeah,
that's how they did all the environments, which exactly goes to show you how freaking good that show looks. And how, I mean, I've realized that I struggle a lot now with live action anything, because freaking Corridor Digital ruined me, man. Like, I can see the imperfections in CG and VFX now that I'm like,
is that why you're like staying away from the Halo show?
I think part of it is, honestly, I mean, granted, the Halo show looks really good, and that might be an exception to the rule, but everything else, especially if it has more like supernatural or sci-fi sides of it, it just doesn't look right to me anymore. And I'm like, oh no, I've messed myself up, and I can't enjoy this the way most people can. And this is not a good thing. So like, I think video games is where I can still have that, because everything is created, everything's generated. You don't have to worry about like full motion video, which is live action.
I am really curious to see if the Book of Boba Fett, by the way, since we were in that topic of that, was also made in Unreal Engine, because there was a steep drop in quality there compared to how Mandalorian looked, and
even
how they
felt like bigger sets though.
Yeah, and also the Mandalorian episodes of Book of Boba Fett, the invasion, the very invasive Mandalorian episodes running in the middle of that season, was like looked significantly better. So it was like it was so weird.
I wonder if like because of the directing, because obviously each one is kind of directed and written by a different person. I wonder if they just knew how to utilize things differently. And I wonder part of it is the tone that they were going for, which just didn't work, versus they just didn't use the right tools for that. But then, like I was thinking, I'm wondering because of how much bigger the sets were for Book of Boba Fett, they couldn't rely on that same like very specific setup, because you can have Mando walking from like a 50-foot radius and just having stuff happen around him, but with like fights running through an entire Tatooine downtown area, you kind of can't do that in that smaller room. So maybe I'm wondering if that's kind of something that had to do with it.
Yeah, or it's just Robert Rodriguez sensibilities that he's more practical, and there's just something, because the two Mandalorian episodes were directed by Bryce Dallas Howard and Jon Favreau, and Dave Filoni.
Which obviously those are the people that did the Mandalorian, so they might know, like they have the experience that would be needed. And maybe Rodriguez just being a new because he wrote at least one of the episodes for Mandalorian, didn't he?
No, he didn't write. He directed. He directed the Boba Fett episode of Mandalorian season 2, and that's what gave him the show.
Okay.
And if you remember that Boba Fett episode where he finally gets his helmet, it's very western-y. It's like in a hill, and he's like shooting stuff. Yeah. And there's just that kind of manic El Mariachi energy to the Robert Rodriguez style that it's not like the more austere version of like a Bryce Dallas Howard or Dave Filoni episode that feel like more serene in how it respects Star Wars and use all the effects to feel extra magical in a way. You know what I mean? So
okay, I see.
So it makes me wonder how much like if he really didn't use the Unreal technology, because and overall the Book of Boba Fett show looked worse than Mandalorian. So
that's actually a good point, because that whole climax of that scene happens practically on a hill in a real environment rather than on the stage where the Unreal Engine could be utilized. So
imagine it's just
in a trend with him.
Yeah, imagine this: the animated stuff is looking better than in real location. We're living horrible times.
What a crazy situation! I mean, that goes to show you like how what we view becomes our reality. Where it's like, oh, this doesn't look right, even though that's real, because you can create and doctor and curate an environment so well to give you a specific feeling, which is what the source of all of this is you create stuff to give people a feeling. And where like Mandalorian can make every single color give you a specific environment, then you just have like the hill that Boba Fett fights on, where it's like, this is just what we have. We can't just create all of the colors.
We're shooting this in our backyard, basically.
Because so COVID. It's like you're kind of getting a different vibe out of it. So then there's less of that laser focus on this is what I want you to feel while watching this, versus this is just a place that people are fighting at.
And now imagine that show was done with 4 Unreal Engine 4. Yep. We got 5 now. So imagine how it's gonna be when we eventually get Mandalorian season 3, maybe later this year or beginning of next one. So Unreal Engine here to stay, and apparently is being widely adopted. Like number 2, within the live stream announcing the Unreal Engine 5 release, Crystal Dynamics announced they are officially now at work on a new Tomb Raider sequel. Their popular franchise they haven't worked on since the critically acclaimed Rise of the Tomb Raider in 2015, after they passed official dev duties to Eidos Montreal, while still assisting them with the tech on 2018's Shadow of the Tomb Raider, while they were officially working on the perpetually problematic Marvel's Avengers, a game currently in limbo. By the way, I just have to interject that. Remember what I posted about this game? Apparently it's like it was busted on PS5, and the only way to like fix it was for you to delete your campaign progress. Man.
Oh yeah, that was bad.
Yeah.
Because they're like, hey, don't worry, we have a way to fix it. Delete everything.
Yeah.
It'll work fine.
And then eventually they patched it. So it was like, let's not forget, sometime last year, a patch put your IP address on screen. So if you're
right.
so it was doxing people.
Gosh.
Poor Marvel's. It's like I feel bad for Crystal because it's just been eternal problems with Marvel's Avengers that continue with this.
Like clearly we're like chained to this IP, unfortunately, to be like, hey, you have to do this and we won't give you like the ability to do what you want out of it. So
yes,
that just makes me feel
but here's what is interesting. Of course, the announcement was made in Epic's live stream to announce the new Tomb Raider sequel would be developed with Epic's new technology, where they're pulling a CD Projekt Red and abandoning their proprietary technology that worked fairly well on the Tomb Raider reboot trilogy, while being a perpetual technological thorn in the side with the perpetually broken live service side of Marvel's Avengers. No details have been given about story, setting, and release window, but an interesting tidbit is that former Days Gone director Jeff Ross has officially joined Crystal Dynamics to work on this new Tomb Raider game.
Oh, shoot.
Considering the studio is basically also taking charge over the initiative's Perfect Dark reboot that's using Unreal Engine 5, it's no surprise they want to keep working on the tech they get when they get around to their flagship game. So it's really interesting because I would say that in terms of effed up, broken releases that seem like perpetually problematic, there's just something about the engine they use that for Marvel's Avengers is just eternally problematic in the live service side. So it's so funny because obviously we knew about CD Projekt Red. They're dropping their Red engine that gave them so much trouble with Cyberpunk. And they are also moving to Unreal Engine 5. And now these guys are moving to Unreal Engine 5. Everyone's moving to Unreal Engine 5.
I mean, my knowledge about game engines is much more recent than a lot of other areas of my knowledge. So I know that Unreal Engine and something like Unity or I'm blanking out on the last one, but basically those are the main two that you use to kind of make stuff. And at first I was like, oh, why wouldn't you just make your own stuff and like you could fully control it? And now with the better perspective, I'm like, why would you bother to make your own engine when you have stuff like this that's made so good? And it is like, I understand that certain ones are made better for certain things. Like Unreal Engine is really good with that realism and that environment, but kind of struggles in some of the other areas like facial animation. It's
very versatile. No, like Unreal Engine has always had a level of versatility as a middleware solution.
But it's not like excels in any one area, right?
Yeah, sometimes engines can give game a very specific look in a way. So here's what's funny, like a lot of games in the 360 and PS3 era were done on Unreal Engine 3. So like because Gears of War made such a visual impact that then it made so many games have that kind of similar
Well, I remember the Unreal tournament back in the day, and that was like one of their big ideas of advertising where it's like, oh, this was made on that. And most of my knowledge comes from the whole Mass Effect Andromeda thing, where it was like this was made in
Frostbite.
Frostbite, that's what it's called. That was the other one that I couldn't remember, and that's the one that struggles with faces, but it's really good with like first person shooting and shooting
exactly.
So then that's where I was like, oh shoot, so some of these are like good with certain types of games, and that's why you would pick one over the other. So this is where I was like, oh shoot, okay, so we've got like Unreal Engine 5, which is basically really good at most things anyway, even if it doesn't excel in one area. I always feel like, especially nowadays, this is where you drop into the category of you let your style cover that last bit of it rather than try to go for 100% realism.
This is what's interesting though, because if there was something that I didn't like about the 360 PS3 era of like the more general game development or the games that were like in everywhere, is that there was a certain homogeneity in the way some games looked in their art styles and sometimes in its technical design because they were all using the same technology. When they were moving towards Unreal Engine 4, Unreal Engine 4 initially was a disaster. It was not a good tool to use. So a lot of people went to different kinds of engines or started doing more proprietary stuff. So the visual styles we got in the PS4 and Xbox One generation were a little bit more varied. Unreal Engine 4 eventually got there. And then in the later half of that generation, more games were using Unreal Engine 4. But Unreal Engine 4 evolved in a way that it wasn't that obvious you were looking at an Unreal Engine 4 game. Kingdom Hearts 3 is made in Unreal Engine 4. Final Fantasy VII Remake is made in Unreal Engine 4. Do those games look alike at all? Other than the menus, not at all. And it seems like Epic has evolved that tool in that it was not gonna like. Just think about the Matrix demo, the Matrix Awakens demo we got at the end of last year. Compare it to the initial demo they showed to showcase Unreal Engine 5, which ironically looked like a Tomb Raider game. So it's so funny.
Yeah. It's like you put Rey in a Tomb Raider game or something. Which I think I wanted to briefly mention. I could have sworn they said that after Shadow of the Tomb Raider they were done with that series. So
Square Enix said that at the moment.
Okay, so like, I guess this is going to still kind of follow that whole plot line.
That's the thing, and that's the thing. They could probably reboot it, move on from that very dark and dreary, like super violent Tomb Raider.
Gosh, that was another thing where going back to that after all of these years since. It is so jarring and upsetting to be playing Rise of the Tomb Raider where it's like, okay, colorful puzzles, let's do all this stuff, and then like you miss a quick time event and she gets freaking speared through the jaw and you're like, oh my gosh,
yeah,
I forgot that was a thing. And like it was so obsessive with people throwing like the most gore into their games. But like at least for the remake in 2013 you could kind of see it because even in the art direction, it was kind of obvious. The 2013 remake was the worst. That had the worst impalings for Lara. But then they toned that down as the series went on. But those games are amazing to play, tonally and in the content wise. They were a little bit dry and draggy, and they didn't stick in. Definitely not really there.
Yeah, they didn't stick with your mind compared to like I would argue that those Tomb Raider games play better than Uncharted because they have more to them. Uncharted is a little bit more simple, but Uncharted stays with you because its visual style, its set pieces, its story, its characters is like are more endearing, and they are more memorable games, like overall games. It's just Tomb Raider beats them in gameplay. So I wonder if they're gonna keep going on that route. There was a little bit of Tomb Raider in Avengers in a certain.
Oh, I could see it
in the good parts of that game. So
I mean, just literally every part of Black Widow's thing was like a little bit more turned up Lara Croft fighting. And I mean, honestly, I could see them still doing it, but because each Tomb Raider is kind of standalone, and like Lara
there's connections. Yeah, there's like
there's some, but like if you just turned on Rise of the Tomb Raider, it would just feel like, oh, this is another adventure where this is Laura and her hero band versus the evil Trinity or whatever they were called.
Yeah, Rise and Shadow are more connected with like with that organization. That's kind of like that is like the antagonist. The first one's the most standalone. Yeah, it's the worst one.
Honestly, you said Shadow's the worst. Yeah. Oh, okay. Shoot. Because I remember.
But it's not a bad game. It's not a bad game, but it's the worst of the three.
Got it. Okay, that makes more sense. Because I would say the first out of that was definitely the most memorable because there's parts of that I'm like are still burned into my head. Not even
the airplane that gets destroyed by the light screen. They have to fall down.
That was cool. That was really cool. I'll give it that. And then like parts where, like. The really tense moments of the people busting in and shooting people up and you're hiding for your life, and I was
it's like, a very violent game. It's a very violent game.
So dark and freaky, and especially at the very end where it turns supernatural, where like people's like faces are getting blown off by ghosts and stuff. I'm like, okay, this is a lot, but it was like it was memorable. I'll give it that.
As a fan of snowy environments, that's why I gravitate more towards Rise of the Tomb Raider, but a lot of people are like the best one's the original one because if it's more jungle adventure and all that, and you know me, I have a thing against jungles in a way, so
I can see that for sure. And then the last thing I will mention on the original is I really appreciated that as you went through the game and you were upgrading stuff, the final upgrades made your pistol look like the original pistols from classic games. I was like, oh, she's doing the thing, and then she like gets the second pistol for the final confrontation. Yeah, that was really cool.
I think that Tomb Raider game is not giving enough credit for how much it was a good template for the wide linear games that we tend to love a lot in recent days. Like for example, there's so much of Tomb Raider in God of War, a game that I tell you have to replay. A game that you absolutely have to replay.
I think during this summer I'm gonna try.
I'll book club it again because I want to replay it again. So.
All right. I mean, I'm currently in the process of like early on in like that second playthrough. It was a new game plus, so I got like all the cool armor pieces and stuff. But I think it was there was a couple of reasons why I didn't continue. But anyway, I do want to get back into it and enjoy myself. But yeah, so Unreal Engine 5, I'm looking forward to it with Tomb Raider, and hopefully it'll be a better game than Shadow was.
Yeah, because it's going to be made by Crystal Dynamics this time. It's not going to be just we're assisting with the engine, but you guys are making the game. That's what's basically what happened with Shadow of the Tomb Raider. And Shadow of the Tomb Raider was a more buggy game than the other ones. Ironically, it's been the one game that's received a lot of post-launch support. It actually has a PS5 patch. So,
shoot, really?
Yeah, that makes it look really nice and run at 60.
Didn't they do that for Rise?
They only did a PS4 Pro patch. They actually did a PS5 patch for the PS4 version of Shadow. So yeah, but final Unreal Engine 5 story. We're mentioning CD Projekt Red. The company was number 3. CD Projekt Red. The company was also featured in the Epic Games live stream and gave more detail as to why they were switching to Epic's technology for their next Witcher sequel, after having used its proprietary Red Engine 4 for its previous 2 Witcher games and Cyberpunk 2077.
We mentioned before, but this is more in detail.
Exactly. Yeah, we mentioned they were switching, but now this is the reasoning. CDPR's CTO Pavel Sadowny said, "It was the shift towards open world support that brought Unreal Engine 5 to our attention." It's interesting, by the way, editor's note. Not many games are open world games were made in Unreal Engine. So, so this opens a new chapter for us where we really want to see how our experience in building open world games gets combined with all the engineering power of Epic. He later went on to say that both Epic and CDPR would work together on engine features in order to achieve something extraordinary in the end. This is a sentiment also shared by both CDPR's art director Jakub Napik and Gwent and now Witcher director Jason Slama, where they note the importance of a Unreal Engine being used by so many teams around the world, which leads to the kind of collaborative environment that can help make the use of the engine something more beneficial for the developers. As Salma puts it, one of the things that is really important to keep in mind when talking about open world games versus, let's say, linear games is the possibilities of the things that can go wrong, or the scenarios that you have to consider are exponentially higher than linear games. Players can go in whatever direction they want. They can handle content in any order that they want theoretically, and to really encapsulate that means that you need a really stable environment where you can be able to make changes with a high level of confidence that is not going to break in 1,600 other places down the line. This sounds like speaking from experience.
It sounds exactly like what happened in Cyberpunk.
Exactly.
And you can feel the, oh, thank God there's something that's going to help us feature.
Exactly, because that's always the fear of open world games. Not every one player is going to play the game the same way you do. You all have to consider different permutations and variables. So what happened?
I thought I heard my doorbell go off, and I think they had some Amazon people just dropping a package off. So
nice.
Hopefully they'll just leave that there, and I can finish this.
We're almost done. Don't worry. So it makes sense. It's like the CDPR engine, the Red Engine 4. That was only an engine that they used, that they made. They knew what it had, and if they needed it to do stuff, they needed to build new tools within that engine, and that adds extra things. So having Unreal Engine now with all the people that really use it, the community forums of Unreal Engine are really cool because all different developers help each other. That's probably the biggest advantage of this. Like, it feels like everyone will be working on the same tech from all over the world. That's gonna improve not just development but also recruitment, because now it's such a common engine and now has the power for the kinds of games they want to make. It's so funny that I was thinking, I was like, what is a game that Unreal Engine has done like in open world? I was thinking that no, they haven't. It's not an engine that's been used for that.
Not very successfully, at least, because I know like people will talk about it. It's like Mario 64 and Unreal Engine,
yeah.
And then it's like, at first I was like, oh, this is so cool looking. Oh my gosh, why don't they make everything in it? And then I realized that that's not how that works, and it just isn't really built for any of that. But one thing that I did want to mention, and I think I'm about to lose it, honestly, but what were you gonna say? So,
do you want to know at least an idea of a game that was like open world, quote unquote, and used Unreal Engine 4? Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order.
That explains a lot.
The jank. Exactly.
Oh, there it is. Because I was just about to talk, which I'm glad you said that, because it kind of reminds me of the idea that wow, it really sucks that so many developers felt like they had to become an open world game series, because it was like if you weren't, nobody took you seriously. And I understand now, especially something like Jedi Fallen Order, where it's like it's got such a good heart, but there is a lot that you can make fun of or bash about it, especially like positioning and movement and activity, and even then being like sort of open world, they really try to throttle your ability to do anything outside of go go down this hallway. You don't do anything else, please.
For its scope, it's just a surprisingly shockingly buggy game that it's gotten cleaned up a lot, but it's still like it's still unrefined to the point that I was like, is there a better technology that they could use for this to make it feel better? Maybe the new Jedi Fallen Order, which may release this year, maybe not, maybe sometime early next year, is gonna switch to this technology, or they matured what they had with Unreal 4 to make it feel better. But yeah, I was thinking, because I Googled, it's like a very tiny list of games that are open world that use Unreal. It was not an engine that was made for that. It seems that Epic really, with that initial demo they put out on 2020, was like, no, we want this engine to be one you can use for your ambitious games. So
do you think that something like Jedi Fallen Order 2 is going to utilize that? Because I would think that if they've already been in the process, wouldn't they just stay with...
So I heard, something that I've heard that's made Unreal Engine 5 so appealing is that its toolset is so similar to Unreal Engine 4.
So it's easy to switch over.
Yeah, it's very easy to... They literally told people, start doing your game on Unreal Engine 4. Be ambitious, because as soon as the new toolset is up, you can immediately just transfer your work there and go from there.
Okay, because I was going to say, like, I know they had the beta toolkit, but that was still going to be a little bit limited, so there would still be a lot of people going with Unreal Engine 4. So
exactly, they had an idea of what they were going to do, but... the transition from Unreal Engine 3 and 4 was disastrous. It was completely different. That's why it was harder for people to initially make games for that. So maybe a better Witcher will help with that now. At least we know why they switched. So, and you could have inferred, and you could infer it after what happened with Cyberpunk.
Oh yeah, they were like, no, we're not using that. I mean, just remember the jank from Witcher 3, and like. Being able to utilize Unreal Engine 5 is going to make the environment. But
that's the thing. It had the jank of Witcher 3. That game is still a looker with its lighting.
It is. That's the crazy part. I mean, like, I guess you gotta zoom out a little bit, but at least stuff like Geralt's skin himself is really good. It's just kind of like, as you go down that tier list of NPCs that are important to the plot, it just really drops off in quality. And especially some of like the armor pieces that aren't made to be like on your body for very long are like, ooh, that doesn't look great.
Now,
and,
especially
like, shadows, leaves, and stuff like that in the environment. But then, like, if you get that solid sunset in the distance kind of thing, then you're like, oh yeah, this is why everyone liked it.
Exactly. But I'll say this, especially because I've seen the best Cyberpunk can look with its lighting and all that.
Yes.
It'd be very sad that they are not able to replicate that kind of quality of lighting like they did with their own in-house stuff, but they're trying to be more effective in developing. So that's basically the main thing about Unreal Engine 5. Give you the tool set to realize your ambition while making it easier and having an entire community to help you with it. So I hope that doesn't lead to homogenization of engines and all games started looking similar, but so far it seems like it has it doesn't have like a trademark look to it that I don't feel worried yet about everyone adopting this.
Like a good art direction person should be able to circumvent that, because that just goes into the idea of like somebody being lazy to make it look similar to another complete different series. It's just, you got to do it right, and then if you do, you're good. But I could talk for like an hour on just art direction, so let's go into number 4.
If you thought E3 would still happen similar to last year where they held a digital event despite the cancellation of the in-person convention, think again. Similar to 2020, there will not be any presence at all in 2022 of E3. However, compared to the 2020 event that got cancelled due to the peak of the COVID-19 pandemic ravaging the world, in 2022 the event got cancelled because every single developer of note didn't want to directly participate with E3 and the ESA, according to insiders in the know-how. Instead, it seems Jeff Keighley's Summer Game Fest has garnered enough goodwill to become the de facto summer game showcase these days, with many companies partnering with him because, as Jeff Grubb puts it, he's at least competent. The ESA said it in... yeah, by the way, I'm pinning that because I'm going to reference why they say that.
Okay.
The ESA said it intends to bring back E3 as both a physical and digital event in 2023, but considering the outcome of this year's show, we can safely assume it's pretty much wishful thinking. Keighley's Summer Game Fest is returning this coming June for its third iteration, where it will have its big kickoff event hosted by Keighley, and then give the time space for the individual participating partner showcases. No specific day has been given yet outside of June. So, the whole thing, a competent thing, in 2019, the ESA leaked all journalists' names, like in a docs document. So, and they never took responsibility. So that's why... yeah, that's why they threw that shade there. That Keighley at least is competent.
Goodness gracious!
It was cool to have the idea of E3 coming back last year after having a full year where we didn't. But let's face it, last year's E3 was disastrous in every way, shape, or form.
Well, I think nobody's trusting E3 with all of their actual news, so E3 just kind of had to do with it what they had, or kind of make whatever they could out of it. And what was bear with me if I completely mix up my memories, where was the one that kept jumping to that group of like Jersey Shore kids? There was like this one dude that's like, oh, we're hanging out after this party, check us out.
Yeah, I think it was E3.
Was that E3? Because it kept jumping to them every once in a while. I was like, don't forget, we're hanging out with these YouTubers and these Twitch streamers after
sounds
the party.
Like yeah, it sounds like E3, yeah.
Okay, so that's absolutely what I'm thinking of then, because that was just so weird, and it just, I don't remember a lot that I was like, oh, this is the greatest thing in the world, or at least if it was revealed there, it hasn't come out yet still. Looking at you, Microsoft.
Oh yeah.
But, I mean, I'm excited because I remember we were talking about Keighley's Summer Game Fest, and we were like, oh, it's kind of spread out. It's not really hitting the right way. And then the next
in 2020,
year,
2020 didn't work. That was their first year. Yeah,
like all of that for the second iteration. I was like, oh, this feels like actual progress. Like,
and he gave us Elden, and he gave us Elden Ring.
He gave us Elden Ring. Everyone called it too because they were like, "Oh, what you got? What you got?" He's like, "I got something good." So sure enough, I mean, everybody loves this dude and the way that he's been handling everything. And it's not like, with a few exceptions, I feel like it's not the "whoa gamers." It's more the "hey, we're just gonna take this seriously and we're gonna be mature about this, but also have fun." So I was like, "Hey, I respect that."
Other than the advertising. Like the heavy advertising that happened at the Game Awards that became a little too excessive.
Yeah,
but that was in Game Awards. I feel like, especially with the Summer Game Fest and with the opening night live of Gamescom, he understands how to present games in a way that respects the medium in a way.
Yeah.
That it feels like if someone's gonna be like the steward of having a place to gather together to have a bunch of announcements, it's better to go with him than go to E3. Obviously, like E3 had to like face against Summer Game Fest in a way, and the Summer Game Fest showcase was much better than anything else that was like associated with E3 outside of Microsoft and Nintendo. And Microsoft was just, it's not like Microsoft was doing E3. They just do their conference around that time to kind of like get that E3 synergy because everyone's already announcing stuff, so that's why they did it. Also, Nintendo does that. And yeah, just remember, those were the only two things that were worth watching because the rest of E3, obviously, I will always be thankful that E3 2021 gave me Stranger of Paradise and a year's worth of ways to torture you that has finally been done and over. And right now I'm torturing you with gorillas. So
thanks to the Peacemaker TV show. Honestly, that doesn't even really torture me. It's like, oh, okay.
No, it's just funny.
You need to find a new way to torture me, and you're grasping at straws to find what.
No, exactly. So it gives you a lot. Imagine the ammo that E3 gave me last year.
It gave you a lot. I'll give it that.
Oh man, but yeah, it's like I at least trust we're gonna have something, especially if now they just gave E3 last year just like some bare minimum just to say that they were there. It was almost insulting to be like, then why are you wanting us to show up to this because you're barely showing on anything? It's because they don't care about him. But then now Keighley has proved himself. Hey, I know how to do this stuff. Let's just celebrate over here. So I say E3 is officially dead. They will try to keep making it relevant again, or try and be like, no, we're still here. But if you're ending it this year now, when things are getting better pandemic wise, some places are lifting restrictions now against.
Well, how are restrictions by you right about now?
It's still the same. Everyone's still wearing masks, but that's the thing. No one's complaining. So
yeah,
and there's the people that don't wear masks in social places. So it got bad during Omicron, but it feels like it's just traditional. Everyone just wears it for safety.
Yeah, so. I kind of wish that had been more of a habit, because nowadays
everyone
feels
pretends
like 2019 right about now.
Oh man, we're back there now.
It is crazy, and us Americans are apparently very headstrong people.
Yeah, but again, like the 2020 E3 was canceled because of COVID. Like COVID canceled everything because that was where it was at its worst. So it had that excuse. Everyone was like, already E3's in its death knell after 2019. That show was bad. So 2020 was like, okay, that ended. Everyone was like, this killed E3. But then they were like, in 2021, it's like, okay, maybe they took an extra time. They used the year off to rethink their strategy and come back and try to make themselves more relevant. But no, what happened was Keighley outplayed them and made a better show. So they have no excuses for canceling it this year. There's like no COVID surge that should cancel anything. So I mean, GDC happened, a smaller kind of GDC, but it happened with proper protocol. So there's no excuse. Sorry, E3. Keighley's the king now.
You're gone, boys.
Yes. Final story, Paul. Were you disappointed that the recently announced new PlayStation Plus will not have PS3 games working natively on PS5 when the service launches?
I was mildly.
Yeah, I was super. Well, it would appear there is a sliver of hope to those wanting native versions of Sony's classic mainline console. As reported by Video Games Chronicle relaying words from Venture Beat's Jeff Grubb says, since talking about this all week, I've asked, ... It sounds like Sony might be working on an emulation for PS3 and PS5, he said. It may take some time. I wish they would come out and tell us that you care about this stuff, because that is what was missing from the PS Plus announcement. To me, it seemed like they didn't care about any of it. They just slapped it together, put a new name on it, and sold it. While conventional wisdom has shown that the PS3's much maligned cell architecture is the reason PS3 backwards compatibility has been limited to streaming only, BGC also relays word of people with tech know-how that scoff at the excuse. They pointed out a tweet from MBG, a famous YouTuber and developer for Nighttime Studios, a studio that's done many remaster works of classic games, where he says, emulation of PS3 is absolutely possible on PS5 hardware. Sony has never been interested in investing the millions to make it happen, however. Until we hear otherwise, Sony is still releasing its revamped PlayStation Plus with the 3-tiered system we talked about last week. It's good, I would say, to hear that at least maybe they're thinking, hey, maybe we need to have a way for native versions of this console to exist in the newer, more powerful console. But I feel what Jeff Grubb said is like, he has sources. He knows where to poke. They told him that. I also feel the same way he says. Like, I wish Sony would have been like, yeah, we're starting this thing with streaming, but don't worry. We're going to make everything possible to make those PS3 games native. Because of course it's like, yes, streaming is a cool option if you just don't want to download games and want to start playing, but at least we're going to give you the option to play natively so you can have like the best version of those games possible. The fact that good old Jim Ryan didn't say that, it's like, it really feels like that. It's like, yeah, arrogant Sony don't
about it. Where I mean, just like you're about to say, is they acted like, oh, we just don't want to deal with it. We're not going to acknowledge it at all. And I mean, that's Sony's whole thing. They don't even talk about natural. They don't at least like acknowledge that they haven't gotten the solution to the problem yet. They just want to give you the solution when they get it. They're not even going to mention, hey, we're working on this, or hey, this is actually a bit of a challenge, but it's something that we might look into in the future. It's like, I know, like, to us that would make all the sense in the world. For whatever reason, they just don't see it like that, and I don't get it. But at least now I'm kind of understanding that's just what they're going to do. So I hope that this is all true, and like they're just eventually going to get around to working on it. But at least it's nice that you see more people getting vocal about this, saying, hey, it's possible. We've done it. It just takes a lot.
A group of modders are doing it with the RCP PS3, the RSPC3. That's basically the emulation for PS3 on PC. It's been taking a long while, but it's there. You can like put PS3 emulation. That's the emulator that shows up there. So it's like that's again. This I've always been saying is like sometimes I like Sony the best when they're losing because arrogant Sony
come up with the solutions.
Yes, because arrogant Sony is like the worst. Like just think about it last year. They were being so arrogant that they were not telling us anything about what's coming out. It made the stupid thing that I'm not gonna mention that had a recent interview with someone that almost made me go crazy like the Joker, hearing them try to explain why that certain thing went. Yes,
he's still doing it. Once in a while we hear about it, and
yeah.
Honestly, did we even talk about the fact that somebody got that interview?
I have tried to make it a point that I don't want to talk about that stupid game in the show anymore. That's why I'm not talking about Abandon.
Well, I've got the button on you now.
Yeah, because
give me a year of grief with Strangers of Paradise and not let me make fun of you for this.
Abandon.
How dare you?
Because the thing is that Abandon made itself so irrelevant so quickly. It was only so that's the thing.
They burn themselves out with that, and it's really entertaining to just.
Think about that episode.
I gave up on it, and every once in a while we'll hear that come through. And
that's the thing. It's not that you gave up on it. You never cared.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I'm like, whatever.
I was the one that went down that rabbit hole. I went down the Pepe Silvia route of that, and then
if I cared about Silent Hill, I think I would be much more interested in it. But because I never did, I was just like, all right, well, let's see what happens. Let's get the popcorn.
So by the way, like this is he did this interview in Last Stand Media. That's what it's called, the Sacred Symbols Plus show. They made it free now. It's an hour. Try to make it 20 minutes through that interview without you wanting to tear your hair out. It is insane that it's like the dude has can't keep his facts straight. He's like, he calls NDA everything, and he said that he has spent $30,000 already in a game that doesn't even seem to exist. It's like, oh man, I tell you, I put it in our chat. This feels like my villain origin story. I'm cackling like a maniac. I cannot believe it. You should listen to that. It's awful. It's like, it's insane.
I don't know if I want to put myself through that or just make fun of you for it.
Yeah, you should watch it just to see that. I actually sat through that whole interview just to hear, because it was like, oh man, because the good thing about the person that interviewed here, he was asking legit questions like, what is the game? Who's funding you? Who's your liaison at Sony? And then when he asks it, he goes on the spiel about what the story of the game is. And he was like, okay, but who's funding the game? Like, it's that kind of interview. It's crazy. But yeah, that gained traction because Sony was like so damn quiet last year, because they were so arrogant. We don't need to say anything. We're winning. We're selling. We're reaching the 10 million sold PS5 without doing anything. And now look, they're like still the market leader, but they're like Microsoft is. They were like this.
Margin is getting a lot closer.
Exactly, margin is getting much closer. So it's whenever they're desperate, they will make the time to like prove why it's worth investing in their machine. It's like, I'm in PS5 because of my investment on PS4. It's like that's the ecosystem I chose last time. So, but yeah, it's like in that time, it's like early PS4. They were still trying to, even though they started winning initially, they still had that mentality that they were gaining back our trust after PS3, and those were the golden years. Like feeling, man, PlayStation cares. It feels like they don't care. So it's like
they haven't really cared in a while, and it's been all their developers kind of carrying that entire goodwill for them.
It's crazy. It's like it's the monkey spot being a fan of PlayStation. It's like their games are so excellent, but man, the Sony Corporation and their decisions, they're like Nintendo-like in their stupidity sometimes. So,
amen to that.
I mean, they let Abandon happen, so that tells me everything.
They're all dumb in their own ways, aren't they?
It is, but
thank God for indie developers.
Oh yes, I hope for the next big indie. It's due. We're due for a good indie game right now. And until then, the PS Plus will remain as it is. At least it's going to give us a library of almost 700 games, but the ones that matter are only based on your internet. So, Paul, that concludes this week's episode. Where can people find you?
That was a fun one. Y'all can find me, as always, at Dork of Art on Twitter. I believe in the next 5, 6, 7, 8. 4 days, we'll finally get the trailer for Sea of Choices, the
finally
game I've been working on.
The poster's sick.
Apparently, I know, right? That was super cool to see, and I'm talking to the lady that actually drew it all the time, just to like pick her brain on how she does work. And then seeing fan art for characters that I designed is like really weird stuff like that. But I'm so excited to see whatever.
I just want to see what the game looks like. I want to see like what it looks moment to moment.
I thought I had shown you parts of
you
it,
explain.
But
They just saw you showed me some of the menu, but I don't know what the game looked like. So I know some of the art. I want to see the actual game.
That's true. It's gonna be like, I personally think it looks a little rough, but it's also
it's early access, so you get away with it.
Well, even though I think that's more like the design choice for him, he wants it to look almost like a PS1 Final Fantasy game.
Ooh, okay.
So I'm like, I respect it, but it's like not my specific cup of tea. So that's where I'm at with it, where I'm like, oh man, I wish it.
Oh man, and it's your own game.
But I mean, technically, I'm only the commissioned artist for it, so it's not even like up to me at all. But I'm like, next time, man, I'm gonna see if I can do something about that.
Yes.
But it's like got a charm to it that I appreciate. So anyway, yeah, we all will be seeing that pretty soon, and that's where you can find me up until that point. Alejandro, where can they find you?
Twitter at @A_DroSegovia, Instagram AlejandroSegovia93, and the website thecriticalcorner.com that's currently getting spammed in many articles by I get into this casino comment, so it's really interesting. So that it means that it's finally broken through, that I'm getting the kind of bots spamming in the comments. Hey, you're giving me you're making my side hits grow. So
it works.
Absolutely. And just a few more episodes until episode 50, Paul. I'll let you know whenever that happens. So until then, everyone, I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. Let us know if you enjoyed it. You can always, like I mentioned, you can like, subscribe, share. Let us know what worked. Let us know what didn't. We want to get some feedback. And until next time, Paul, stay safe. I'll see you online. And everyone, remember,
press X
to play.
Good night, everyone.
Hasta luego.